Not to eat them, I'm assuming, right? I mean, they're thinking, oh, there you go, let's tuck into that.
Okay, there are all sorts of pitfalls to that story. Tread carefully, my friend.
I will.
Joining us is James Shugg, who's senior economist at Westpac Bank. We're going to allow him to enter that minefield, and that's as far as James, I want to start off by talking about the commemorations to mark the D-Day landing, the 70th anniversary. This picture on the front page of the Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung, quite an extraordinary picture in itself, but a reminder that this was an event marked by both sides in that conflict, historically.
Of course, I mean, we had Anzac Day recently too, which commemorates the Australians and New Zealanders landing at Gallipoli. That's right.
Yeah.
And I had no idea that my grandfather was a stretcher bearer at Gallipoli until then. You know, my advice to people is find out about your family history, because it's going to be very difficult soon to have anyone alive that's going to have contact with these people still. And there's so many wonderful stories that you'll understand more about yourself if you find out about your family involvement in this sort of thing.
Well, there are fewer and fewer of them, aren't there? Only a few hundred of the veterans of D-Day who are actually left. I remember after the First World War, a few years back, interviewing one of the survivors, one of the men who fought there, a guy called Henry Allingham. He was more than 100, an extraordinary guy. And he went to a school and was talking to kids now about his memories, and it was like a living history lesson.
Absolutely.
Spine-tingling stuff. And some of the memories, some of the reminiscences we've been hearing from the men and women who fought in Normandy.
Life is so different for us these days.
It makes you wonder, what sacrifice would you make?
Well, and Angela Merkel even mentioned it in one of the dinner speeches with the G7 gathering, a comment about, we should thank Britain. Of course, it was a lot more than just Britain, as we know, but thank Britain for the sacrifices that it made standing up, basically, to Germany back then. Talking of Europe, should we look at this new battle, James? I find that fascinating. I've known James for years. I find that fascinating. As an Aussie, that your grandfather was a great-grandfather. Yeah, stretcher bearer.
Yeah, sure.
England. Wow. The new battle for Europe. Let's talk about that. There's a lot going on. They're a very good point.
Ironic.
Applause to laws. Remember that headline in the Sun, I think it was? God knows how many decades ago. This is a battle that crops up every time the leadership of the EU Commission comes up for grabs, and there's always this animosity between elements in the UK and the leading contenders. Although it does get into some pretty dirty sort of commentary about photographs being taken and it's the debate is getting a little bit smutty, it seems.
It could be a bit of a smear campaign, but certainly Mr. Juncker saying what? He's trying to look at... God, my eyes are going here. He said he's not be forced to get on my knees before the British.
Do you want to borrow these?
I think I'm going to need them soon. It's coming very close. It's coming soon.
I hope there's a link to that later story about food. Look, it is a big issue because the Brits, of course, are looking at the referendum and not wanting to be as closely linked into the EU going forward. What he's saying is that if the other EU leaders would be more open in their support for me, wouldn't have to be doing this sort of grubbing around for support amongst various minor parties and so on.
Apparently he's been trying to speak to Mr. Cameron, but Mr. Cameron wouldn't return the call. But I like this paragraph here. It says that after an event, Mr. Juncker was chased around the summit building by a reporter from the BBC and refused to answer his question. I think I might know who that is.
Go on, name them.
Good on him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's have a look at the Financial Times. This is a big story yesterday.
Absolutely.
And you're still looking at that today, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm sorry, you want me to talk now?
Yes.
No, that's fine, that's fine.
Now,
Yeah. Of course, now what's your take on this? Because,
I love this guy.
Do you?
I took my Madonna poster off my bedroom wall
and
put him up now. He is awesome. He has done so much.
A little not too late, do you think? I mean, they promised that they've said they will take action for
what he's basically done is he's penalising banks for keeping money at the ECB, so they've got to do something else with it. He's making available cheap funding for banks to lend to small and medium-sized businesses and households, other than for mortgages, and at the same time alluding to an asset purchase program, quantitative easing, just down the track. So there's a real incentive now for banks to lend because they know that they'll be able to flog those loans back to the ECB when this quantitative easing program starts. So they'll only have the risk on their books for a short period of time. It sounds a bit House of Cards-ish, of course, as everything does with Europe. I mean, the OMT will never, ever be put into place, but look at how sovereign bond yields there have collapsed. So I think it's going to work. It's the Draghi magic.
Oh, you are a fan, the Draghi magic. What's interesting, though, Draghi or not, but what this highlighting, you know, markets are cheering this, of course, cheap money, etc., and they all like that. But it does highlight this out of kilter that we're seeing around the world, right? Here in the UK, in the US, they're talking about when we're going to raise interest rates, and yet Europe's sort of rushing to battle stations still.
Currency moves. If the ECB were to start a program, the Fed tapering off its asset purchase program. I'm going to say, the jobs numbers today in the US, I think they're going to be very weak. The late Easter effect, which is distorted a lot of economic numbers. Boosted April, I think, and May might surprise. That's very much still the downside. So there might be some question mark even about when the US can start to take action.
Okay, let's take it to the data telegraph business section. This story about Inmarsat planning to introduce broadband on all services out of London, BA possibly being the first customer. So Wi-Fi on the plane and the potential of calls as well.
But we've had calls in the planes for 10 years, and it's not Wi-Fi.
Lots of airplanes have
Absolutely. Lots of airlines have Wi-Fi, don't they?
I'm a big fan. I love being online. It's the best thing. So you have to do a lot of work.
When you're up,
Yes, I do. I write out research reports. No one in particular.
Yeah, right. If your bosses are listening.
So you think it's a good thing? It's inevitable?
Look, people need to be connected these days. It is nice to be able to just shut off. Have the excuse that I couldn't do anything, but the reality is, yeah.
It could be another. I wonder if we'll see quiet or something.
You can always say goes down. I don't mind over the plane.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah, I couldn't get up. We couldn't work out.
Oh, here we go.
All right,
So to speak, let's move on to Japan. Let's get to that. Calm down. Sorry.
I don't think it's a problem with the choice.
Going on to the Japan Times. This is a picture of a robot suffering. Unveiling a historic robot that can sense your emotions. It might replace us, in fact.
Well, this is interesting. This is Japan's plan to take care of its very large aging population
By having
care box.
I want a really small version as an app on my iPhone, and I see, in fact, that the company involved in manufacturing it assembles iPhones. So maybe there's an app that you can get, so you can work out what people really feel when they're talking to you.
Or you could just talk to them. Find out.
Oh, yeah. On the phone.
What a thought. But it is interesting, the idea of kind of companion robots, I think. Okay.
But we are seeing a lot of moves lately in the sort of world of robotics. Yeah. A lot of companies, a lot of acquisitions. I mean, I'm trying to. It's Google, I think, did an acquisition not that. A couple of months ago.
A lot of acquisitions go, but you don't hear much about new product.
No, that's true.
In that regard.
That's true.
Very brief.
Go on, yeah. Why hungry men like a supersized lover? So if we're hungry and we're looking for a friend, we look for large ones.
Nè.
Usually that expression, oh, I want to eat you, comes from.
Yeah, maybe it does, but I don't. We don't even have time to go into it, really, do we?
I think that's probably quite a good thing.
I think it's a great story.
James Shugg.
I'll never be back, I suppose.
Joining in for the last time, and you and I, for the last time, probably be replaced by CareBots. Thank you very much for watching. Stay with us here on BBC World.
See you soon. Thanks a lot.